Hey guys, today's software is Cella, like we just used the last time on a recent live shave. And this is the older of the cool little containers, and I think it's nice. And vintage, a little bit of a vintage look to it. And it is the one I'm using to hold the Cella that is the 1 kilogram block. I think it's a different formulation than what you get when you just buy a tub, and so I'm using this to differentiate the two. And I had a pretty good shave with it last time. I ran it a little too wet, and so I want to back off a little bit on the moisture this time. The other piece of kind of hardware, I guess you'd call this hardware, is the same brush that I used in that live shave. This is a Shave Nook 2018 limited run made by Semogue. It's got, like many Semogues, it's got some kind of natural splay built into it, even when it was young. And this one is only like the 10th use. I believe it may have been used before me, but it's my 10th use. And so I still think it's pretty young, but we've got a lot of nice split tips, especially around the outside. And then so I think this is going to be a nice little brush, a beautiful, very subtle tortoise handle there with the faux type tortoise handle with that amber coloring. Most of it's very dark color, and the amber color is you almost miss it if you're not looking, and I kind of like that. And to the harder items, we are going to bring back the carbon shaving titanium, and this has the mild base plate on it. I got word from Carbon, and I contacted them just to kind of talk about the razor a little bit, and they appreciated my candor about how maybe it wasn't quite a great match for me. With I like smoothness. I like quieter razors. This one kind of has a tendency to chatter a little bit, give you that audio feedback. Some people like that. Nothing wrong with that, if that's what you like. And they actually recommend I try a Nacet in it. Well, he didn't know I was the guy who'd put a Nacet through 450 uses, right? But you don't expect people to track everything, you know. But he said that a lot of his users are replying back, give Nacet that Nacets were actually uh, smoother or milder in this razor, gave a better experience. And that's funny because I hear so much feedback about Nacets that they are almost like as sharp as a feather, but just more enjoyable, more smooth to use. As efficient as a feather blade, but more enjoyable. And that's some of the feedback I'm getting back from the Nacets. And so it's funny that he would kind of give me the exact opposite feedback. This is a Nacet. This is not my 450 use one. This one is one that's only had about 7 uses. I do keep one in rotation that has a lower number of uses just for this very purpose, for testing. And like if I've got a new razor I'm bringing into the fold, I want to be able to try a Nacet blade in it. It's one of my favorite blades, but I also don't want to skew the results by only trying the 450 use Nacet in there. Now this razor did come with a little washer to go between the base plate and the handle there, just to keep it pristine. If it's a razor I'm going to keep, I usually pitch those. Or I definitely would switch to a nylon washer. This one's kind of rubber, and so it'll have more flex to it. But here is the mild base plate. And this titanium, it's just a wonderful thing to experience. It is so strong, but so light. And you hear those words because that's how we describe titanium items, right? But then when you feel it in your hand, when it's just it feels like a surgical piece. It feels so accurate and nimble, but feather light, that sort of thing. I almost wish for maybe a thicker handle where I could give a little bit more weight to it because it is quite light. With the shave that I did before, I tracked how much water I used, as I usually do, so I'm going to try to add less. Also, I did an interesting load attempt or theory. Man, I tell you what, I was thrift shopping today, and I lifted up a nightstand to move it, and I lifted it kind of high, and there was this a wall part that had come out of the main wall area. And there was a big plastic sign, and I'm sure it had some rules for the thrift shop, or maybe price list, or some kind of public notification, and it was kind of a thick sign. And I just, from my vantage point, I didn't really see it. It was kind of up here, and I lifted the nightstand up, and I just jabbed it right into the sign, and the sign was basically like a blade. And so it's almost like I put because the nightstand had the momentum, it gave my thumb momentum, and it shoved my thumb into the blade of that sign. And in essence, it's like I put my thumb on the top of a nightstand and slammed a hatchet on it, just, and it started bleeding just a little bit, but mainly right now it's really sore. It's almost like I dislocated it or something. I don't know how that's going to affect my shave, but it feels very weird. All right, man, I feel all beat up. I had an accident the other day, and see, I got my wrist. This one's actually kind of deep. Got some abrasions. My knees are messed up, and so now before at least my left hand was a little better, but now the thumb's been messed up. So it's like I got to be careful with no matter what I touch. I'm not going to have a good way to touch it. Picking up brushes and razors and things like that. All right, so I'm going to shake out a lot of this water. And now what I did was I choked up on the knot to keep the knot kind of small as I worked in this small container. And one of you guys during the live shave remarked that this is a terrific travel container. I totally agree. The lid secures on it very well. Like the Perazzo lid is kind of a snap-on. It would pop off potentially with some travel. This guy's very secure. It's a nice strong container, not very flexible at all. I think it would hold up to the rigors of travel quite well. And so when I choked up on the blade, the brush here, it did very well at keeping the bristles in the container and therefore getting a good load. I loaded 30 seconds before. Let's do the same thing again. And 40 is going to roll around right there. I'm not trying to keep every single bristle inside, but just most of them. So since we're starting at 40, we'll go to 10 seconds on the next minute. The brush has been soaking for 40 minutes. I knew I was going to shave, and so I went ahead and started it soaking. Since it is young, I wanted to, there's 30 seconds. Since it's young, I wanted to give it a nice long soak and help those tips to split and that sort of thing. All right, so as you may have seen, we do have some, this is the tallow Cella. At this point, they haven't succumbed to what tobacco has given way to and switched to a vegan formulation. I think I have 2 pucks of the tobacco. I jumped on Amazon and it still had the ingredient list as the original tallow formula. And so I thought, you know what, I'll just order it. Sure enough, it got here and it was the tallow. So I've got a practically new puck in the little tobacco ceramic container. And then now I have a refill, and due to my high rotation of soaps, that should definitely last me a nice long time. All right. So I just put kind of that extra bubbly stuff on my face, just kind of as a little bit of a face wash. And man, I hope I don't drop this bowl or anything with my thumb being weird. Let's tilt you down. So the tips on this are pretty soft. If I was using a really aggressive razor that kind of had a tendency to rough up my skin, then the scrub that's on this brush, just a little bit, it might aggravate the situation. But as long as I don't do that, and that isn't a typical scenario for me, then I'm not going to have any problem with it. And then, of course, we know that boars will just get softer over time. Now, I did say during the live shave before that, this does have a good bit of backbone, like maybe from the base up to halfway up the knot. It's still got quite a good bit of backbone. And so I think it might be a really neat knot once we get a lot of uses on it. I really do enjoy my badgers, and I have been using them a lot lately. But I wish I could kind of do a year of shaving and then reverse time and go back and do it again and just choose different stuff, so I could put a lot of uses on some of my boars, because they really start to shine when you get a lot of uses on them. And I've just got so many that I'm enjoying. Okay, that is about 13 milliliters. Let's just work that up into a consistent lather and see what it looks like. So many of these boars are... now my zeniths, my Semogues are enjoyable to use even when they're young, even when they're, 15, 20, 25 uses, and so it's just going to get better from there. But they really, really start to shine when you get a lot more uses on them. But, it is what it is. I guess at some point down the road, if I get tired of choosing a big boar rotation, who knows? We all will have the freedom to change our game plan, and I could just pick one and just throw a bunch of uses at it for, who knows, maybe 2 years straight. I don't know. And then I could finally see what it's like to have a boar with just a bazillion split tips and all that. Well, this is definitely a little bit, definitely thicker than what we had last time. Now, you've heard me say so many times on this channel, you have to consider some residual water, residual hydration, we call it carryover hydration in the soap. See, I hadn't used this soap for a while. And so when I loaded yesterday, it didn't have any hydration in it from past shaves. Now today, however, it did have some hydration from yesterday's shave. And so I probably ended up picking up more soap today than I did with the same brush, with the same duration of loading. And so even if I were to put in a water amount that was equal, like I almost have, put in a water amount that's actually equal to what I used yesterday, because I have more soap, then the ratio is not going to be the same ratio. And I'm going to stop. I'm going to use this lather. I don't want to take it too wet, and I sure hope I haven't, because it was nice and serviceable last time, but the razor was skipping a little bit, and I wanted it to just kind of feel a little more luxurious and creamy and slick. It was pretty slick. The razor was skipping on me some. If I said that just a second ago, I'm sorry. Yeah, this definitely has some body to it. Not quite as elastic, I don't think, as what I was using before. So I may be stopping at the right time here. Let me just really kind of work at it for a second and make sure that we've got a good homogeneous mix. I was able to use that Pearl Flexi recently, the 5th generation, and so now I'm gonna send it back to Pearl, because I promised them I would do that. They exchanged and sent me the 7th generation, so I'm going to use that one here in the next week or two. This is a little short-handled guy, and so you do have to hold on to it with kind of a death grip if you've got a soapy handle. Now here, I'm not usually working with a sink anymore, and let me take advantage of that and kind of rinse off the handle. That's something I don't really get with my basin setup. It's a little harder to clean off the handle. Now this little short handle, of course, is great if you're a face latherer. You're not going to have any problems there. Now I think we've gotten it to a nice lather. Plenty of lather. Okay, oh, let's feel of it and see what type of slickness we're dealing with here. You know, it doesn't really feel like, it's not super rich. It has a very thin kind of slickness, a little creamy kind of slickness, but a very thin layer. Who knows? I may go back to the puck for a few seconds if I find this to be still too wet. You know, sometimes it's hard to resist adding some water because so often, man, water is exactly what most lathers need. Are you tilted to the side? I think I might be tilted. I might overcompensate. There we go. All right. Now let me get my face properly wet now. All right. Nice wide coverage on this brush, and so you don't really have to splay it very much. And since there's a good bit of softness in the tips, and they have a good bit of give to them, you have a nice effect here of feeling a good number of the wide coverage. You know, you don't feel like you're using a small knot, at least at this point. And I got a feeling that's something that's just going to get better. It's going to feel bigger and bigger as more of the tips split. Some of these even have split half an inch or more. Sometimes it's hard to see the bristles in the middle of the knot, and so you don't really know what their condition is. It seems like the ones in the middle are ones that change a little slower than the ones on the outside. Outside ones split quicker. Yeah, this is definitely a thicker lather than I had yesterday, so I think mission accomplished in that regard. Now before this starts dropping all over my shirt, it was Sunday, so we're wearing a church shirt today. Couldn't find my t-shirt though, so I had to kind of go a polo shirt without a t-shirt today. Yeah, good. I'm happy. It feels just a little creamier than yesterday, and that's what I wanted. Well, actually, yesterday was kind of wet, so not just a little creamier. It feels exactly where I really wanted to hit. A good step or two creamier, and we'll just see if that translates to a better shave. I did actually feel like the slickness wasn't there. Sometimes the water, if the water takes over too much from the soap, then the razor sticks a little bit on your skin. And I felt like that happened with the Flexi the other day. And the Flexi's got a pretty good large contact area. And so if you do have that problem where maybe you've thinned it out too much and the soap can't handle it, then it'll definitely kind of slow down and feel a little draggy on your skin. Fortunately, it didn't feel draggy in a rough way where like the blade feels draggy on your skin. I've definitely had that happen with some razors, and then you feel irritation. That at least didn't happen. All right, here. So Nacet blade, pretty young Nacet, in a carbon titanium razor with a mild base plate. You can hear that this is a razor that gives you a lot of audio feedback. Now, what does audio feedback mean, my friends? It means that something is vibrating. And of course, we know that it's the blade that is vibrating. Well, if the blade is vibrating as it moves across my skin, then that means it's moving up and down. And that means that Sometimes it might be digging into my skin, and then when maybe it's down, and then other times it might be up. And I kind of want something more consistent in general. And so that's why I go for the quieter razors with a really good grip on the blade. Now, some guys like that audio. Now, I didn't get any irritation, any negative feelings from that first pass. I've definitely used a few different kinds of blades with this razor that did give me a rough feeling, a little raw feeling after that first pass. So we'll see if anything builds up over time here with the next couple of passes, but first impression, fairly good. Oh, fair notice, we are shaving maybe a day and a half of growth off. And so sometimes that can give a vocal razor a reason to be a little bit more vocal. But honestly, I take smooth razors and I'll shave off 3 days of growth and they won't be noisy. So it's still a little too noisy for me. Man, I made up plenty of lather here. At the first pass, felt great on my face. It may not, feel amazing between the fingers like some of the maybe more modern bases do, because this is a soap that's been around for a long time. I do enjoy when my nose is working, the cherry marzipan almond type scent. All right, that thumb. When I think about it, I can move it, pretty well. It's painful. But then that pain, if I'm not thinking about it, that pain alerts me to stop and look at what I'm doing, and then I realize, wait a minute, I can move it. It's okay. It just hurts, All right, so with all of that, one of the good things about this razor, even on the mild plate, with all that vocal choir singing that was going on, that first pass, it did a lot of cutting. So it'll probably be quieter now in the second pass and more comfortable. So it would seem that this mild plate, for me at least, is plenty aggressive. And so if you like razors to be on the smooth or mild side, then you may also find that this mild base plate is plenty for you. And there we go. A little bit of residual kind of slickness, but not a lot. Not a lot. You would definitely want to re-lather before you did too much touching up. And this is one of the things about Cella, and this is one of the reasons after yesterday's wet lather, I wanted to bring a thicker one, because if it magically changed and left me with a little bit more slickness on my face, I'd like to know about that. And then maybe make sure that I hit that. So this is definitely not a lather that performs quite as well as a lot of soaps out there, fine accoutrements, those classic pucks. Even the new Crope is probably better than this. Stirling, and of course the mutton tallow, but a beef tallow as well. And honestly, even some of the newer ones like Milk Steak and the ones that are focused on moisturizing, like maybe Noble Otter's Newest and that sort of thing. I don't like some of those quite as well as some of the highly slick ones that don't have as many moisturizers. But even they beat this guy out a little bit. But, there's just something about that little red container. Let me get a little bit of water on my face at least here. There we go. Before we put on the third pass of lather. But this little cute little red container, the fact that so many guys have used this lather, this soap, over the years. And just, I like the nice smell. Some people don't like it. I understand. Smell's subjective. And it's not a super high performing soap. And the 30 seconds, as you can see, gave us plenty of lather. I just loaded up the third pass, and we've got another 3 passes in there. So you don't need to load for 30 seconds, especially once you use it a couple of days. So again, we'll do a cross grain, and I bet this is a lot more quiet than before. Some people with aggressive razors like this, and I had to do this with the charcoal goods that I had for a short time. It did end up to be too aggressive for me to keep. Some people will ride the cap, and that means where maybe your angle is like this. To ride the cap means to distribute weight a little bit more on the cap, and so you end up lifting the handle up away from your face a little bit more, so that there's less pressure. It's not quite a balance of pressure anymore, but you have more pressure on the cap of the razor instead of the safety bar. Now, with the different blades that I've got, and I've tried in this razor, you know, so many of them have produced, actually, almost all of them have produced very close shaves. There was one that didn't, maybe even two, and it's because it felt so rough and aggressive that by the third pass, I wasn't really able to get close right here in this area because it felt like I was just going to tear myself up, right? And so I had to back off on my pressure so much that I just wasn't getting close enough to cut hairs. All right, very good. I'm happy with that. Let's get a good rinse. So, along with the maybe half the blades that I've tried Feather, Astra, maybe Vashkod, and now Nacet, and a few more. I, again, have gotten a great shave. Very, very close shave. But it comes with that audio in the beginning, and I don't really care for that. And there are just so many other razors that give me, well, let's say there are several other razors, a good number, that give me nice close results. Maybe not this close, but close enough at a much more comfortable and smooth feel. So that's my priority. Now, is this a bad razor? No. It just doesn't really match my priorities when shaving. And that's totally normal. There are going to be guys who love this kind of audio feedback, and I'm just on the other side of the spectrum there. So, wonderful razor. The workmanship, excellent. Wonderful generosity to provide this as a Lather Games prize. And I won it, and I'm very grateful. And so I can definitely vouch for the quality of workmanship here, the balance here, the handle, everything. It's just excellent. And so for those who like that kind of shave that I've just had, then this is just going to be a tremendous asset for them. To have it be titanium and to have that weight. Now, I might like it better if it was stainless. Not really the shave. I'm sure that would be the same. I'm sure it would be just as chattery, but the weight of it would increase a little bit, and I might like that a little better. It might have a smoother feel because of that added weight. All right, well, very good. I did use the same water as last time, but because there was that residual water in the soap, it allowed the surface of the soap to more easily give up its contents, and so no doubt more soap was loaded into the brush today than was yesterday. And let's, I don't really have any irritation. I mean, just a faintest hint that I used something that was a little chattery, but it's one of those things that doesn't really even bother me now, much less. I don't even have to worry about it going away in 5 or 6 minutes because it's fine. But it is there. So we'll be using Dunshire. I'm working on using up this balm here. Not really trying to keep too many balms on hand here. especially when I can't smell them very much at all. I like Stirling balms. If you do put them on a wet face, then a little goes a long way. And you don't have to, you don't get a, if you don't need as much of a nourishing effect, like I don't because I have oily skin, then that's another reason to put a little bit of water on your face before you put them on. Excellent. All right, I told you the water, the Nacet, again, did well. Almost no irritation. Just tons of chatter, especially on that first pass. But fairly comfortable and a nice close shave. And that's the mild plate. I can't imagine the aggressive plates. That's just insane. A little bit of trivia. So here's what this guy looks like after. Give him a good towel stropping and a good sling out of water and stuff at the end of the shave. And you can kind of feel the backbone in those tips here. Not really all that soft, but you know what's going to happen? As this dries, the tips are going to separate. Right now, because it's wet, they're kind of clinging together. As it starts to dry, the tips are going to relax a little bit and curl like they do, right? And so it actually will become softer as it starts to dry. Now, eventually it'll dry so much that the moisture's gone from the bristles, and so then it'll be more dry and rigid again. But it's a very funny thing how right now it feels like it has more backbone than it will in maybe an hour when the tips start to curl and relax and things like that. And so then it's almost it's like it gets 3 times as soft, and you can rub your hand over it and you're like, wow, I can't believe it's changed that much. It's a neat little effect that boars have. Excellent. Well, I don't think that there's anything else to share with you. So there we go. It's a good shave. So there we go. The 1 kilogram block. And so to me, it seems to shave just as well as what I remember the standard, puck when you buy individual ones. It does represent a pretty good savings if you get a good deal on that 1 kilogram. I think I calculated maybe filling this up 7 times, and if you buy it for maybe $30 and then you get you lay out as many uses as you get, I think it ends up to be a pretty good deal. But honestly, with the performance there, to me, I kind of might wish for something just a little better. Stirling, for instance, one of their pucks will last me over a year at my usage rate. And since I use a bowl, I'm able to conserve the soap and use a lot of the soap to its best advantage. Not a lot gets wasted down the drain. And so then 13 months, I think, is what I can make a Stirling puck tub last. And so to me, I guess I'd rather do that than buy a kilogram block just for the purposes of economy. All right, guys. Well, there we go. That's the end. And thank you so much for joining me today. And this is Sugar Daddy Shaves. I hope there's been something in here to help you out in your shaving. You guys take care. Good night.